Sweet. We're at a minute after, according to my watch, and we have 50 people on. So it is my great honor to welcome you to our first Emerging Professional Network hosted Lunch and Learn for 2022. I know that we've kind of took a pause on this when we were trying to get back to some in-person things, but we want to try to have at least one of these quarterly for those who may not be able to come out to in-person, don't feel comfortable, and also to supplement that for the people that do, that are able to attend some of our regional emerging professional events. As always, everyone is included, everyone is invited to join us no matter their age or kind of how they are emerging at their credit union or in their career. But we really want to kick off 2022 with a bang. I'm feeling excited. Spring's in the air, as you can see by my jacket. And I think the numbers are turning good. So hopefully we'll have some more in-person things coming up. And it's my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker for our Lunch and Learn for this year. She came in coming up close to a year now at the league, started last June, and has really done some great things. And I'm honored and privileged to work with her. I think she has great ideas and great vision for the Virginia Credit Union League, as well as the Emerging Professionals Network. She knows, as well as all of us do, that y'all are the future of Virginia's credit unions and credit unions across the Commonwealth. So we see, there's a lot of future CEOs, CFOs on this call today, C-suite across the board. So that's what it's all about, taking the time, learning a lot. And that's all I have for today. I'd like to thank our Emerging Professional Committee members who are on here. Trent at Northwest, Mark at AB&B. If I'm missing anyone, I apologize, but we do have a good committee that oversees the entire network as we do events throughout the Commonwealth, throughout the entire area. Up to 62 now, Carrie, but I'm going to kick it over to you and welcome everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, CJ. Well, thank you for that nice introduction, and I'm excited to talk to everyone today. Today, I'm going to the format of the next hour will be this. I'm going to spend about talking about my background and myself and kind of how I got to where I am. Then I'm going to talk about the league. In the last part, I'm going to talk about how I think what we're doing at the league can be applied to you and how you engage and involve with credit unions in your own organization. For anyone who has had the opportunity to hear me speak, I think you may know that I love credit unions. I've been a credit union member since I was small. My parents worked for the government, and of course, there's a strong history and nexus between the government and credit unions within different government agencies. But I have to say, I certainly didn't grow up thinking, I want to work in credit unions and be a credit union attorney and eventually CEO of Virginia Credit Union League. And that's okay. I'm not sure many people would think or say that, but I will say I am a believer in planning, but then also pivoting and staying true to what makes you happy. For me, doing things that I love, and also just finding the positive in anything that I have done has served me well. And I have to say, like I'm sure many of you on the call, I've had some really crappy jobs. High school, of course, I babysat a little bit. Actually, even in junior high, I remember one time, kid was super hyperactive, kicked me in the neck. I worked in a perfume store a couple of summers, and just would come home every night with a headache. I also my very first job in retail was folding sweaters. There used to be a store called Cape Isle Knitters, and that's all I did. I just folded sweaters, all day long. After college, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to go to law school, but knew I wanted to work for a couple of years first. And I temped for a while. I remember for a while was in a temp job where it was my job all day long to answer the phone in a call center and deal with angry convenience store workers whose Coke machines weren't working. It was like at a Coke facility, and I had to talk them through waiting for their fountain repairs to happen. And I just mention all of these things because I do think having knowing what you don't want to do and knowing what you don't like can be just as important as finding something you love and helping you really take you on that journey. So I have to say that no matter what I've done in life, I've always approached it at what can I take away from this, and what can I learn, and how can it take me to the next step. But I grew up in Annapolis, Maryland. Grew up sailing and in classic kind of 1970s into 80s, suburban life. Went to the University of Maryland for undergrad, was an English major. Knew I wanted to be an attorney pretty early on. I worked in the student legal aid office, but knew that, I had to, I was a little very green. When I go back and look at pictures of myself, or even really reflect on what I thought I knew, it wasn't anything. I could see why no one in their right mind would want to hire me. Just, I was just a person. There wasn't anything to distinguish myself. And that's when I kind of really came to the realization that, you really do have to go on a journey. And for every single job that you're in, you have to focus on that job and take whatever you can and glean from that. So then you're prepared to go on to the next level. So I went to law school at William and Mary. And, I applied to a bunch of different law schools, and, William and Mary gave me some money. So that's where I went. I was paying for it myself. My parents, I was very lucky. They paid for me to go to undergrad, but, that was it. And I do think that recognizing also that I needed to make right financial decisions, so that I wouldn't be saddled with a whole bunch of debt in the future was something that also was important to me. But, when I was in law school, I have to say the path I ended up taking wasn't the one I thought I would. I worked in some small firms, did a little bit of litigation, worked in bankruptcy court. And I just came to the realization that I really, really did not like any of those things. And because of that, I really did some self-reflection and figured out what I did like. And in between college and law school, I worked for the Congressional Research Service up on Capitol Hill. And I love politics. And for me, it really was the excitement of things always changing, always something new. And I really, really loved doing that. So I took both the Virginia bar and the Massachusetts bar back to back, because my sister was up in Massachusetts, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll go up there for a while and kind of see what the world has to offer. I have a little bit of that wanderlust in me, so I definitely took advantage of that when I was younger. And ultimately, I passed both bars. I took them back to back. For those of you who don't know, the bar exam is 2 days. One day is essay, another day is something called the multi-state, and it's multiple choice that's used amongst all the states in the country. So I went down to Roanoke. The bar that year was in Roanoke, drove down, took the first day of essay, took the second day of multi-state, got myself from Roanoke Airport, stopped in Pittsburgh in the middle of a storm. Flight got delayed to 11 o'clock, got up to my sister's apartment in Massachusetts at 1 a.m. By that point, the storm had worked its way up the East Coast. Made it my way to the bar exam, having taken the T, which is their version of the Metro. Truck splashed me. I was wet. I had gasoline smell all over me. Practically stumbled into this convention center where they were, giving the bar exam. And then they announced that because of all the weather, they were going to delay the bar exam by an hour. I was exhausted. I just lay down on the floor. Everyone around me was all worrying about taking the test. I wasn't. Had already taken Virginia. What was the worst that could happen? I would fail. And but got up, took the test, was one of the first people to finish, and I passed. And I have to say, after that experience, I learned that sometimes, you do have to take risks, and, sometimes they can really pay off. So I ended up working in Massachusetts for the state senator, and he was the Joint Committee on Banks and Banking, and that included credit unions. It was an amazing experience, and that's how I got involved in credit union law, and the rest is history. It's people ask me too, how did you make your way back down to DC? And my now husband wanted to come back down to the area. And Marion Clancy, who was the general counsel of, at that point, the Massachusetts Credit Union League, made an introduction for me with Eric Richard and Mary Dunn, who were the general counsel and head of advocacy at CUNA, and they took a pass. And I answered an ad in the paper for NAFCU. They were looking for a regulatory attorney, and kind of the rest is history. So it's really funny sometimes how our paths can go like this, right? I had a long, an amazing career at NAFCU for 17 years. Originally kind of applied for CUNA, and now I'm kind of back into the CUNA League system. So, you never know what the future is going to bring. I will say though that, I'm super excited to be in the president CEO chair of the league. Throughout my whole credit union career, I've always really admired what leagues do for their members. And one thing that I've always loved about advocacy is the element of it where, as advocates, we're helping individual credit unions solve their issues. And that is my passion. And you will see that in everything that the league does. We exist to help our member credit unions be the best that you can be. And sometimes that means we need to get a law changed. Sometimes that means we just need to connect you to the right people. Sometimes that means we just need to listen so that you can tell us, what some of your issues are. And with that, let me talk a little bit more about where the league is and what our vision is. And as CJ said, if you have questions, please share in the chat. But also, you can just shout out to them. I love taking questions during presentations. All right, where is? Sorry, I just did the wrong thing in Zoom. Between Zoom and Teams, I get mixed up with the sharing. Hold on one second.
You do have 74 people on. I think that's a new Lunch and Learn record. So kudos to everyone joining us today.
I think everyone is just the weather's nice. They're bored of their job. I think nobody wants to. All right, where did my slides go? Sorry, there they are. All right. This says you can see. Can everyone see this? Did it flip to the big screen, or is it still in the, oh, there we go. There's the big screen. I didn't think so. All right. So I call this presentation Powerful, Present, Future Focused. And, at the league, on day one, I walked in knowing that the league did great work. The league had, loyal members. I could see how hard, everyone here, worked for you all every single day. So I think that we need to always be focused at the league at what is going on in the present. What's happening in credit unions. We just there's a whole bunch of discussion on overdraft. How do we deal with that here in the moment? But within those discussions, we also have to keep an eye on the future. How is what the league's doing today positioning credit unions to stay relevant and for you to be successful going forward? So that is how I approach the work that the league does every day. Everything we possibly can to make credit unions strong right now, but with the mind, we're going forward and we want credit unions to keep going forward. At the league, there are three main things that we focus on. Advocacy, both at the state and the federal level. And advocacy is a pretty broad term. It can mean a lot of different things, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We also are focused on linking up credit unions with forward-thinking business solutions. There's a big push on, of course, the digital delivery of services, and also collaboration. And collaboration is one of my reasons that I do what I do every day, and wanted to make sure that in my career, I was taking advocacy to a new level. I loved my time at NAFCU. I think NAFCU is an amazing organization, but there were times where I would get frustrated that CUNA and the leagues and NAFCU and all these other players weren't on the same page. And it felt like we were working against each other and not with each other. So from my perspective, how we collaborate, either on the advocacy side or just within the communities that we live in, is incredibly important. Relative to advocacy at the League, we protect and advance credit unions, but it's really a very mechanical process. Advocacy is you can't press a button, you can't buy a computer program. It really is about relationship building. It's about information sharing, and it is about having a critical mass of voices to try to get change. Because inevitably our elected officials are really beholden to voters, of course, and the number of voters matters. And our appointed officials either are part of independent agencies where they are beholden to the public via the public comment process, or they are directly flow from the administration, which again, we elect a president. So having a collective voice and having as many people engaged in advocacy as possible does translate into success. We, though, have to channel the message and, again, make sure that all of these voices are going in the same direction. Specifically, though, relative to advocacy, I do think we are most successful when we fight for issues that help credit unions achieve operational success. And I hate to use large and small lines in the sand, because I think a credit union is a credit union. But because of economies of scale, there are things that larger credit unions can do because they have more resources than smaller credit unions can do. And I do think the League has an important role in making sure we meet the needs of all of the different credit unions here in Virginia. The League is also working to create the best environment in both the federal and state level. I have a whole separate presentation that I do on the nexus between federal and state issues. And we've seen recently how tough it is to get anything passed in Congress. And there's just so much divisiveness that a lot of what's happening happens on the state side. And the more states get that pass very similar laws, the bigger chance is that we're going to see something similar on the federal level. And it is this yin and yang that happens all the time. We also are very focused on seeking feedback from our members on policy matters. And the VACULE board has just created a new policy committee. We have a committee which focuses more on our PAC and how we actually message what we're working on. But we also want to make sure we have a better mechanism for making sure that we get feedback from our members specifically on policy issues. So I am excited about that. And also lastly, on advocacy, we absolutely focus just as much on legislative and regulatory policymakers. We have to hit both sides because legislation can take a long time, and often it's the regulation that impacts us more than the actual statutes. Recently, the League has dealt with a lot of different issues, overdraft. We have the issue of cold weather vaccine mandates, a lot of issues coming out of the CFPB. So for as we could talk about, all week long about various issues, but instead of talking about each of those from a substantive matter, I just view the League's role as being on top of and just following all of them. We need to issue spot. We need to make sure that we are getting information out to you as to what you need to be focused on. I also want to talk a little bit more about collaboration. And I do think that collaboration is the key to advocacy success, but it can be difficult. Everyone gets busy. We have our own people that we are beholden to. Me, I'm beholden to the members and board, but there are all these different entities that are out there. CUNA, ACULE, which is an association which deals with the leagues, different leagues, CUNA Mutual, NAFCU, and then lots of other players, whether they be the independent community bankers, the Mortgage Bankers Association, all of these other financial services entities that all play into this bigger market. And I do think we need to be talking to each other. And if we can't always agree, I think we need to figure out, can we work together when we do agree? With collaboration, though, there's also, I think, some great collaboration that can be had between credit unions. And I see that all the time. Here in the Richmond area, I know there's some credit unions who work together to try to help some smaller credit unions that need operational success. If there's a need in the community, credit unions, band together. And also I see collaboration all the time at networking events where credit unions will bounce ideas off of each other. And the league is going to continue to provide those opportunities for our members. And lastly, I do mention business solutions. So we are focused on, connecting credit unions with trusted partners to provide the best innovation. And I think that credit unions need to be constantly looking as to how they deliver their services so that they can provide what consumers need and want. And we are all the time exploring new partnership and new business relationships. So that in a nutshell is kind of what we are focused on. And we also provide, a lot of different resources that we I think are helpful for you to do your job every day. But the reason why I wanted to talk about what the league does and the fact that we are focused on these three things is because I think it's helpful to talk about how a business, and the league is of course a business, even though we're not for profit one that supports you all, how that model can be looked at to see how you as a professional within a business can navigate how an organization defines its work stream. So let's go back to the beginning and talk about powerful present, future focused. One of the things that I've observed in my career is that there are a lot of, in particular, I don't use the word young because it's not always young, but people who are at the beginning of their career or have made a career shift are always wanting to know how I can get to the next level. How can I move forward? How can I advance my career? And the piece of advice that I always give people is the best way and that you can achieve future success is to focus on the present. And if you are folding sweaters like I did in high school, then you better believe that those sweaters better be neat and in a row and the best folded sweaters that anyone has seen. And you fold those sweaters, the sweaters are great. Pretty soon your boss knows that you do an amazing job of what you've been asked to do. And then that opens the door to take on new things. And I realize that is extremely simplistic example that I've just given. But time and time again, I have witnessed this desire to move forward before you've actually knocked what you were hired to do or are directed to do out of the park. So that's one of the biggest pieces that I can advice I can give to people who are in that really either beginning or sweet spot in their career where maybe they're not where they ultimately want to be, but they are continuing to build out their skill set. I also do think it's important for everyone to have some sort of a career plan and to be future focused. I'm a very big believer in, I hate to use the word staying true to your heart, but I believe that when you do things that you enjoy or you are very self-aware as to what you like and want to do versus what you don't like to do, then that ultimately leads to really positive things in your career. So I think having a plan with what you ultimately want to be doing, or even what you think potentially your next step could be, is important. But it's also important not to get ahead of yourself and to just figure out, okay, what are the steps I need to take to get there, at the same time not losing sight of what you're doing in the present. So I talked about the league and these sort of three pillars with resources, information as an undercurrent, because I think within each of your credit unions, you likely also have a game plan. And typically credit unions have a tagline or that that identifies with the credit union. They have certain things that they specialize in. And credit unions have a culture. I think it's important for anyone who works at an institution or an entity to really make sure that they identify with that culture and are living that culture. Because ultimately, culture is the glue that holds us all together. And it is this credit union's secret sauce in terms of how it is engaging with the members and ultimately being successful. So at the league, this is our culture in the sense of, these are the things that we're focusing on. This is how all of us are defining our work so that we can move forward at the same time. And likely at your credit union, you have something similar. So if you don't pay much attention to that sort of thing, if you just, you see it on the wall, but you don't really think about it or really live it, I would encourage you to really think about what that means and what it means to the entire organization. So relative to, advocacy, I outlined all of the things that we do, every single day. And again, at your credit union, I would make sure that you are aware of what the credit union does and what everyone around the credit union does. I think you would be surprised if you just sat there and thought to yourself, of all the different people that you run into every day. I guarantee you're going to have some moments where you're going to be like, you know what? I have no idea what Jennifer does, right? No idea. And I encourage you to talk to everyone within the credit union, because I guarantee you, the more you know about how all of us work, the more you know how you can be more effective in your own role so that you can support your team. Similarly, relative to collaboration, I do think that as we all engage in our professional everyday lives, we do need to think of ourselves as collaborators. You are a collaborator with every single person at your credit union to help the credit union succeed. And as a collaborator, it is helpful, I think, to figure out what it is that you provide and what value it is that you provide to the entire organization and an entity. And if you haven't had the opportunity, or it's not something that's built into your your review process or how your credit union looks at people's job descriptions or professions, I would make sure that you have a voice and are making sure that your supervisor and or your colleagues understand what it is about your job, what it is about you that you feel that you bring to the table, and how you collaborate with others. When over the course of my career, I've hired a lot of people, and it's whenever I look for anyone, I've learned that you can't teach attitude. I can teach skills. I can send people to training. I can help people recognize how important drinking the Kool-Aid and being part of an organization is, but it's really a hard skill to teach. So as you move through your career, I would also encourage everyone to do some self-reflection and kind of view yourself, how are you as a collaborator? And how do you really make everyone else better? And lastly, let me talk about the analogy with business solutions. We, as I said, are trying to focus on providing credit unions with trusted partners. And one of the things that you can do in your credit union too is issue spot and bring ideas to management or also your peers. And I really do think that intelligence is currency, but I will say you also can't expect that every single idea that you bring to your organization is necessarily going to get adopted, right? There's resources, there are other things that come into play. But anytime anyone has ever come to me with a new idea, I welcome that, because it shows that you're engaged, you're thinking, you truly believe that you provide value to the organization. So I know there are a lot of people on this call that are in a lot of different points in their career, have a lot of different job descriptions. But as you continue your work at your credit union, and as you continue to grow in your career, I really, really encourage you to always communicate what your desires are, what your thoughts are, and also communicate with yourself to really get to know yourself and what it is that makes you want to bound out of bed every morning and go to work. Because I'm a huge, huge believer in, we have to be kind to ourselves. We have to be kind to other people. We only have one life to live. So you really need to enjoy what you're doing. And I know I love what I do every day. There's certainly some tough moments. There's certainly times where, I want to pull my hair out for issues and things that I can't control. But over the 17 plus, actually probably of all my jobs, 20 plus years I've had in credit unions, I do not regret for 1 minute spending all of my time and energy focusing on organizations that believe in helping people. And for me, that's been incredibly satisfying, and I hope it continues to be. But with that, I'm happy to have a dialogue and discussion about things I've learned or elaborate on anything that I've just said. And if not, I'm gonna put CJ on the spot and make him ask the question.
I know the script's not bashful.
I'd be curious just to know how many people on the call are in credit unions because either a spouse or a parent or someone they know was in credit unions and told them how great it was. Anyone? Put it in the chat. Family, friends. Thanks, Wendy. Spouse. Awesome. Yep. Got one. Health insurance. It's a good one, friend.
So, hi, I'm Amber Schwarm. You can see I'm no longer driving. Not a very bashful person, but I joined a credit union because of a spouse, but I started working for a credit union for a completely different reason. My career has had a lot of a winding road as well. And most of my career has been within some context of a financial institution, but in analytics. And so coming into a credit union space has been very interesting because trying to do what I've done in the past has been a little different or challenging because seeing it as a mortgage or a banking industry, something like that, it's been very different to say we're not in banking, we're in credit unions. And just the amazing networks that I've been a part of where we've had credit unions bouncing ideas off of each other is not something you would see with Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase. You don't really share secrets. It's just such a great feeling. And I don't know, I absolutely love it.
That's awesome. But let me flip the equation on you, Amber. So you entered the credit union space. You love credit unions. They do things differently than banks. But what do you think from your bank experience credit unions could do better? Because there's always going to be some of those things, right?
I think in my experience so I started my professional career, not all of my jobs, but my professional career at Countrywide Home Loans in 2000. I don't really want to say because it'll age me, but I got to see the height of the refi boom, and then I got to see the implosion of Countrywide inside. It was a wild ride. It's like the movie The Big Short, but the home game. I think I'm not sure if this is necessarily something that credit unions can do better, but maybe something that banks do well. Banks typically have larger budgets. and they can build systems internally. And because they can build systems internally, sometimes, I'm not saying always, there's a lot more, what's the word, congruent, things line up a little bit better.
Yeah.
Sort of my frustration, or some of my frustration points at credit unions, can be that we have a business partner that does this, and a business partner that does this, and a business partner that does this. And sometimes all of those partners don't nicely align, and you have a very disjointed, you could have a very disjointed member experience. So just trying to figure out how you don't always begin with the end in mind, because you're fixing all of the different relationships with business partners, but how do you fix it while it's happening, but then also continue to go down your journey without having a member experience that's unpleasant?
Yeah.
I know that sounds vague and very, very
No,
specific
that was helpful. But and what I would challenge to you, if you haven't, already, like that feedback that you just gave me, that type of feedback is important for the credit union to know. I'm not saying they don't know it already, right? But and all of our experience build on each other. And even though you came from a non-credit union, that experience is just as important as having been in credit unions for 20 years. So thank you for sharing. Thanks, thanks for all that. Does anyone else have a experience they want to talk about? I want to hear about some bad jobs. Folding sweaters wasn't that bad. It was just very monotonous. But has anyone had just a job that was so horrendous that they said anything's better than this and jumped into credit unions? I see some smiles.
I'll tell you one quick one, Carrie, and this is the best and the best thing that ever happened to me. I got my dream job, what I thought was my dream job, working for a state delegate. And while I loved the job, me and the member did not, pair well working together. So we parted ways, and from that, I landed at Fort Lee Credit Union, and then 9 years later, I'm here right now, and I'm happy as anyone I think could be. So it's funny how sometimes you need those bad jobs, like you said, to get to where you need to go. And also sometimes, a lot of times, they say you don't quit the job, you quit your boss, which I think that's very, very true. You can love what you do, but if you have a bad manager, and I've been lucky ever since that time to have great managers in the credit union world.
Okay, we've got on the chat, Stephanie started in manufacturing, Cindy in meat department. Yeah, like I would not be on board with that. I'll say too, and this is really more of a full topic for another day. I personally am excited with the strides that have been made in our society relative to equality, right? Whether it's diversity, whether it's equal pay, whether for men and women, and all these different issues. And I'm not saying we're there yet, but when I think back as to when I started my career and just some of the nonsense that was really prevalent, and compare it to where we are now, I think that a lot of positives have happened. So, and I think that has opened a lot of people's eyes to just how we treat people, how we hire, how we look for different. I'm a big believer in that diversity makes us stronger. But I have to say, coming here to the league, it definitely, Rick had been here a long time, and definitely I could see some remnants of, a culture that I didn't fully identify with. I'm not saying that it was like, discrimination going on or anything like that, but, I'm very like, okay, we're going to communicate over Teams, we're going to, do this. And that hadn't been traditionally a part of the league culture. And culture change does take time. I'm sure CJ can pull you aside at a bar and tell you, some of the trials and tribulations of my first couple weeks, but it's all good. We all have to move forward. So but it was fun. It was fun.
Hey, Carrie, it's Crystal from Bayport Credit Union. You mentioned, you asked the question earlier, how many of us came into the credit union because of a spouse or a parent?
Yeah.
So I don't have that situation, but 2 of my 4 children have worked at the credit union. So my oldest daughter worked at 2 different credit unions that I worked at for 4 years. And then she decided she didn't want to continue that, went into nursing. However, my youngest daughter, who just graduated high school last year, is in Bayport now, and she's already been promoted to supervisor. So I think from a parent perspective, I was completely comfortable recommending my children into this industry because I love credit unions. I love what they stand for. I trust that while they're navigating in their early years of really trying to find out what they want to do, that they're in a good place.
Yeah.
And it's a skill that they can have to fall back on if they do decide to do something else. And so 2 of my 4 children followed me in the credit union industry because of all the great things that I've said about it and the things that they've heard. So it's just awesome. The way a lot of families, I've noticed in 15 years of working at credit unions, that a lot of families work at credit unions. The 3 credit unions that I worked at, it's been aunts and uncles and spouses and children and parents. And, it's a family thing. And I like that.
That's awesome. I think it's interesting too. You mentioned that, your kids, may not have stayed in credit unions, but gone into something else. And that kind of feeds into the fact that, you're not always on a trajectory, right? But you learn something from every place that you are. What I think is great about credit unions is because they have that, customer service focus. And it goes even further because they're member owners. I think as a society that we have really shifted that way. Everyone wants a VIP experience, right? I mean, I always laugh when I go to the airport and there are, 20 different categories of who can board first with it's first class and military and the babies get on then. And then, it's the wheelchairs and then it's certain people who have the frequent flyer, and then there's those who forgot to put the frequent flyer in, but maybe they have more miles than someone else. And it is as a society, I do think we want to feel special and we want to feel like we matter. And I think credit unions do that better than any other financial institution. And I think that's part of credit union success. And it's very, again, I like nothing more than to be able to help the credit union and credit unions help their members, and you get those, you get those thank yous, and you don't get those thank yous in every industry. So it's great. It's great. But other questions? Does anyone have? Oh, go ahead.
Hi, sorry, I was waiting on everybody else. My name is Marian Saul. I'm from Northwest Federal Credit Union. And I just wanted to hop on and say how honored I am to be speaking to all of you today and having this Zoom meeting, and to you as well, Mrs. Hunt. But you were asking about how we switched careers and how we shifted and how we like it at the credit unions right now. I just wanted to share and say that when I was recruited from a recruiting company. I didn't know where I was going. I had no idea. All I knew is that they knew I had a call center background and that I knew how to have good communication with customers, because that's how I used to call them. But I took that leap of faith, and right now I'm hired, and I've been there since January, but really as a temp since August. I had a background of hospitality business. I've never been in banking my entire life. And realizing how we do impact people's lives and how we help them and how much the credit union is so much different than any banking experience just made me realize how much I belong and how much our cultures are so much different than anybody else. So this thing was the best thing. This career shift was the best thing that ever, had happened. And I'm happy I took that leap of faith. That's all.
That's awesome to hear. I love to hear about the leap of faith and try new things. And I always say, well, it's worked for me in my career, which it has. But I think I also either purposefully or conveniently forget things that didn't go well. So maybe that's a key to my success. I always I only remember the positive and block out the negative.
Yeah, which is positive is all that we look for.
Does anyone have any other questions or thoughts? I'll also, if not, I also briefly mentioned. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm curious if anybody would like to speak to it. Being new to federal credit unions, I'm actually with People's Advantage Federal Credit Union, and I really wasn't aware of the scope to what the credit union helps their members. But now being in this environment, I can see a number of different ways, to really help a community. And I just want to know if anybody can speak to how do you balance, and prioritize the goals that you have to get done with some of the dreams that you have. How do you stay present in the moment of the current mission opposed to, what could potentially happen in the future? Because I feel like credit unions provide an opportunity to do some amazing work. And I'm seeing it now. But, if anybody's like kind of new to the credit union atmosphere, how do you balance and kind of pace yourself in this new environment? Because my background is community service and business development and things of that nature, because I want to help people. And now I have a way to really not only help people, but kind of transform their lives in some capacity. So how do you guys balance the day-to-day, making sure that you're on mission with, kind of reining in the dreams almost a little bit, because I see so many different ways that I could help, but I want to make sure I'm on task. And also work-life balance. I mean, some nights I'm like sitting up thinking about different ways that I could be impactful, that I can collaborate. So, I mean, not to ramble on, but how do you guys kind of work that out? Or will the excitement wear off for me? Or, I mean, can you?
I'll take that if anybody else wants to fill in. I will say this, I face similar challenges. I have a very clear vision of what needs to happen on the advocacy side, and even within credit unions, business models and how they deliver services, I think, to be successful to the future, but I can't wave my magic wand and make that happen. So I think if you go back to that advocacy slide, the slide I had with the wheel, as an association, we have to stay focused. And I think each of us sort of have that wheel, but within that wheel, there are definitely, ways that you can really have that opportunity to do other things. One is making sure that you are talking about your ideas to others. Again, they're not necessarily going to take them all, but getting those discussions out there is important. And two, again, tying back into your credit union culture. Different credit unions have different focus. Some credit unions, like Chartway have a big foundation and they have certain things that they do. Other credit unions are much more focused on just enhancing their members' lives, or focusing on those projects. So I do think just understanding what the credit unions are doing and how you can participate in that is great, and talking about your ideas. I will say too, if there is a passion project that you really believe in and really want to spend your focus on, then a lot of times you do just need to have a mentor and a sponsor and get buy-in and do that. But you are correct in recognizing that you can't do everything all at once. You only have so much balance. And you really, I do think, just have to figure out where you think will be the most impactful within the parameters that you're being given, and go from there. And I'll say this too, at some point in your career, the parameters may not work for you. And that's typically when all of us then move on to other organizations or do other paths. And, that's really what happened to me at NAFCU. I had, amazing career and loved what I did. But it was more, how can I do more? What is it that I need to do more? And that's why I moved to the league, because for me, it was a self-realization that if I wanted to do more, then I needed to try to harness collaboration. And also I really missed working actually with some individual credit unions. I throughout my career, I love doing that. So self-awareness, looking at the parameters that you have, getting some buy-in from either, peers, supervisors, others, and two, just being kind to yourself and recognizing that, yeah, you can't do everything. You can't. Just make a difference where you can. But other thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to just jump in and add, this is JT at Call Federal. And I was just going to say that sometimes you can be working on something that maybe in the moment only impacts one individual member or one individual situation, but it could be a much more common problem. I've definitely had things here where I'm working on with one member, one situation, and it opens up and realizes, oh, this is something that we can make a process change that is going to impact so many more of our members. So I wouldn't think about it as necessarily has to be you're doing something right now, and that's, the opportunity cost is this bigger picture. Sometimes they can lead in and kind of merge in a great thing.
Other questions? You're welcome. I'll say the last thing I'll mention before certainly closing out on my end is take advantage of training opportunities. If you and not just take advantage of them, but seek them out, and if you need permission or getting budgetary sign off to do them. One of the biggest things that's helped me in my career is working for an organization that valued and supported training. And I think sometimes there's a fear that, you give someone training, well, then they move on to a different organization. And in my experience, that is not the case. It makes people better employees. So if you're asking your supervisor, or if you're looking to to build out your skill set, it can only help the organization. So I really encourage people to take advantage of training where they can.
Carrie, I guess we're getting close in time. I always like to end with something similar to this. What is one thing, I think most people around here are going to be between 25 and let's say 35. Put myself on the higher end of the age range. What is one thing you wish you knew at that time of your life that you know now that you think could save us some headaches as we move forward through our careers?
I think that I'll say the number one thing is patience. And you never know when an opportunity is going to open up. So I think that, I think sometimes we feel like we're maybe stuck in certain places in our career, or we don't have a clear vision of where we want to be. I will say that any time in my career when I may have felt those moments, then, something has changed, or, I made something, I instigated something that made a change, and it works. I'll again, a whole nother topic for another day. I think is work-life balance, in particular for families who have children or any, not just children, but like we all have issues in our personal life that we are balancing. I feel like there have been times where I have felt pressure to either focus on family or be successful on the career side. And I have learned that it's okay to say no to certain things, and if you are valued and you have the skill set, other opportunities will come about. So it will happen. It will have patience. It absolutely will happen.
That is excellent advice. Do we have any last questions?
No questions, just a comment. I want to say thank you for this presentation. It was very, very helpful and informative.
Good. Well, thank you so much.
Awesome.
I
Thank
just want to share with A. Miller, I think it's Antonio. I've been 18 plus, almost 19 years at the credit union, and the excitement never, ever ends. Just keep that passion.
That's awesome.
I appreciate that. I don't think it'll want. I just want this. I really asked that question to confirm what I see every day at People's. I see people come in every day, and that's rare for me. I mean, I've had a number of different gigs, but I've never seen people come through the door every day fired up. And so it's just an adjustment period, getting used to it. And I've seen like incredible patience. I've seen people literally work miracles. And so from that perspective, it's brand new to me, right? And so I want to make sure that you kind of want to make sure it's real. And then I also see all of the other possibilities to keep helping. So it's more so a question about pacing myself. It's going to be one day at a time, really one member at a time. But it's always good to get perspective from those who are a little bit ahead of you on your journey. So that way it helps you map out your course, with some actual data, that you can trust. So I do appreciate all the feedback that I've gotten here. And I'm pretty sure my team will help me out in this regard as well. But I definitely appreciate the meeting as well. So thanks for the invite.
Awesome. Well, I know I'll get to see some of you at various events, but call me anytime, reach out to CJ. Again, we're here as a resource, not just in your day-to-day jobs, but I always love to chat, so all
Perfect.
good.
Thank you so much, Carrie. That was phenomenal. I think there's no better way to kick off 2022 Lunch and Learn series. As I mentioned at the very beginning, we are going to continue and start doing more in-person regional events. We've had some good ones in Northern Virginia recently, Tidewater, Richmond area. I'm actually working with Antonio to do some stuff in the Tri-Cities near Petersburg. I know we're actually coming out. So if you're in the Roanoke area, April 20th, we're going to be having a event in conjunction with our annual meeting. We have a date, April 20th, 7 to 9 p.m. at Twisted Track Brewery. We'll be sending an email out today with that invite, but that's 100% official. You heard it here first, folks. So hopefully you come out. We're going to do more stuff. We're working with Parkview on doing some stuff in Harrisonburg for some of the credit unions out that way. Always in Charlottesville, around the Commonwealth of Virginia. We want to do it. If there's something in your area you want to do, reach out to me. We'll try to make it happen. I think this is perfect. People say all the time, CJ, how do I get involved? Well, you're doing it right now. This is the perfect first step. Reach out to me if you want to get any more involved, have any questions. But Carrie, thank you again. Thank you for taking your lunch hour, everybody, to join us, and just have a wonderful week.
I'll ask you, CJ. I drove from Roanoke back up to Arlington, having gone from Richmond earlier on in the day, all in one day, so it can be done.
We can
See
do
you
it.
in Roanoke.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, CJ. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Thank y'all.